The core of the web's ability to display data is through HTML, which will be our inevitable conclusion in this case, and Laravel handles this task by employing a view class and an HTML template syntax called Blade. Now you've seen the basics of how a layout is created and using content and section blocks to place the contents of a hello file using a layout file wrapping it. But we need to get into a little bit more detail about Blade and some of the controls within Blade. So let's do that by looking at our base route. Let's head over to Sublime and go to our routes file. Here I'm actually going to remove the hello route. We don't need that. And we're going to look at our data here. Here we have a few things. Let's break this out just to make it a little bit easier to read. And then we can add a few more items. We'll just stick with 3 for now. So now we're going to, when we go to the root, we're going to get view, make, hello, and then with our data. We don't have anything in our view that's going to show that, so we'll go ahead and switch over to our view folder. We don't need to go into the layouts folder. We just need to look at this one. So very much more simplistic. Let's start by echoing the actual data that's inside of our array. The way we can do that is in typical PHP fashion. We could say echo and simply say name. Let's refresh and see what we get. All right, Jane, great. Now, here we're going to use Blade syntax to do the exact same thing. So how would we do that? Blade uses curly braces, in which we'll use 3 of these, and then just simply pass through the variable itself. So we can say name. Now, refresh, same thing. Okay, let's go back to our routes, and instead of just passing through an array, which will automatically break these out into individual variables, let's say we want to have an array come through as an array. Well, we'd simply call it with data, or any name we want it to be, and then pass through the array. Now, when we go back over here, if we were to refresh this page, you're actually going to get an error and get an undefined variable name. The way we solve for that is to call the new pass-through variable, which is data, and then name. Typical array access. Hit refresh. Now we have Jane. That means we should be able to do the same for email, right? And location. Perfect. Now let's say we wanted to grab something like last name. All right, we hit refresh on this, we're going to get an error that says undefined index. Now, this is something very typical that we solve for in PHP by using an isSet or if isSet, and then we print what we need. Here, we can do a large if statement, or we can use the Blade if syntax. The way we're going to do that is by saying at if, and then pass through our arguments, which in this case will be isSet. So we want to test that something is set, then data, and then last name. So here, if it is set, we want to do something, which in this case was print the output. So we'll tab in, hit that, and then to close out our if, we say at end if. All right, save that, and then hit refresh. We should get nothing. And that is correct. So we could also add an else statement into here. And now we would, now we'll pass through some triple curly braces. Actually, since we don't have any data here, we'll just say no last name set. Hit refresh. Okay. Make sure this is working. We'll go back to our routes. We'll add in a new one called last name. And refresh, and then now we're showing dough. So that way we're using our Blade syntax for if-else statements. Clean this up a little bit. All right. Very simple, very basic structure of an if-else and then end-if statement. Something else we may want to do is to actually loop through all of our content using a for loop or a for each. So again, PHP syntax, very simple, but here we can use the Blade syntax at for each. And then the way we're going to end that is the same way we do for the end if, but we'll do at end for each. Okay, so inside of our for each, we're going to want to pass through some arguments. The first one would be what it is that we are looping through. So it is data. And then as item. All right, now in here, we're going to print list, and we'll just print out the item information. Now, the way we do that is using our Blade syntax. And then refresh. There, now we have Jane at doe.com, Florida, and Doe, which are all four of the items in our data. So now we have a very clean for each loop, very simple, nice looking syntax. Okay, so there's one more thing that's very important to understand about the triple curly brace syntax. If I was to remove this and then refresh, remove all of them and then refresh, I'm going to get the same result. It doesn't look any different to you. But let's say, for instance, the user data is coming in. Typically, we escape user data. We want to get rid of HTML special characters, so on and so forth. Why we'd want to do that, let's say, for instance, we added, instead of last name, someone entered in, I don't know, some even malicious code. In this case, we'll just use an alert. So I'm going to paste in an alert here, which you'll see script, window alert, don't trust user input, which is a very true statement. I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to hit refresh. So see, here we've got the pop-up. We've actually executed the JavaScript, which is what we do not want. But Blade, in all of its wonder, if you were to have left the multiple curly braces, the 3 instead of the 2, and you run it again, you'll notice now it doesn't actually run the script. It actually escaped it for us. So that's a wonderful thing about Blade that you should always keep in mind, that it will escape when using the triple curly brace syntax. It will escape user data.